All right, geometry, we are talking chapter 8 now. We're getting into triangles, special right triangles, things of that nature. So to start out is something, 8.2 is something that we've talked about before and you know quite a bit about already, and that's Pythagorean Theorem. Okay, the Pythagorean Theorem is used to find the missing side of a right triangle. If it's not a right triangle, can't find a missing side using this. So sides A and B in this picture, the ones that form the right angle, those are called the sides, the legs. Don't write that. Those are called the legs. And then opposite of the right triangle, which is C, or opposite of the right angle, is called the hypotenuse. Hypotenuse. Okay? And so for any triangle, any right triangle, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So you got to get really familiar with using the square button and the square root button as well. Okay? So when we're looking at these examples, I'm going to get my calculator ready. Let's start with number 1. We've got the hypotenuse is c, and so now we've got everything ready to go. 8 squared plus 13 squared equals c squared. So that's 64 plus 169, and so we add those two together and we get 233. So 233 equals c squared. So to find c squared, we need to make sure to square root both sides. And so the square root of 233 is 15 point, and let's see what the round to nearest tenth. So 1 decimal place, which is going to be 0.3 because it was 0.26. So that rounds up. Okay, so in the same fashion, we've got number 3, but this time c is 9. So in this case, I've got the legs, x squared plus 7 squared equals 9 squared. And so that's going to be 49 equals 81. Get the x by itself, and we get x squared equals 81 minus 49 is 32. And so we square root. Square root of 32 is 5.65, which is going to round up to 5.7. There we go. And so let's go ahead and finish the odds on this page. Okay, so in this case, we've got a little different situation. We want to find this side. Well, if this is 24 and 24, that means that these two sides are also going to be congruent. Okay, because that middle part has to bisect that. So that would be 11 and 11. So in that case, I'm going to go 11 and x, and then 24 is c. So x squared plus 11 squared equals 24 squared. And so I've got 11 squared is 121. 24 squared is 576. And so I subtract away the 121, and x squared equals 576 minus 121, which is 455. And so take the square root of that, and we get x equals 21.33, which round to the nearest decimal, 0.3. And there we go. So let's look at the very last one here. Looks a little complicated, but not too bad. We've got 2 right triangles here. So let's start with the big one, and then we'll figure out this whole side. So what I'm going to do is actually, to find x, I'm going to find this side and this side separately, and then we'll add them together to get the whole thing. Okay, so in this case, I've got for the triangle on the right, so this one here, I've got a squared plus 12 squared equals 29 squared. And so that's 144. 29 squared is 841. And I subtract away the 144 and get what? 697. And so take the square root. A equals square root of 697, which is 26.4. And so I got to do the same for B on the left side. So this time it's this triangle, and my C is 14. So B squared plus 12 squared equals 14 squared. So I'm going to subtract 144 to both sides, get B squared equals, that's 196 minus 144, which is 52. And the square root of 52 is 7.2. And so when I add those two together, x equals 26.4 plus 7.2, which is 33.6. And there we go. So let's go to the next page. The next page talks a little more about that stuff, but we're going to go ahead and look at a couple of application problems. Okay, so if you look at this first one, it says a roofer leaned a 16-foot ladder against a house. If the base of the ladder is 5 feet from the house, how high up is the ladder? So you got to imagine this is a ladder. 1, 2, 3, yeah. This is 16 feet, and it's leaning against a house. Okay, so the house needs to be a right triangle, and it's 5 feet from the base of the house. So we don't know how high up it is, so that's why that's going to be x. Okay, and so in my case, it's going to be C for the hypotenuse. So x squared plus 5 squared equals 16 squared. Sorry for the background noise. And so x squared plus 25 equals 16 squared, which is 256. So subtract 25, I get x squared equals 231. And so now we've got x equals, and then the square root of 231 is 15.19, which is going to be 15.2 feet. And we can write that in a complete sentence, but for now we'll just write that. Okay, so let's do one more and then we'll go to the back side. Let's look at number 12. It says, Ashley jogged 3.4 miles east. Now, you got to remember north, east, south, and west. So 3.4 miles east. And then 5.7 miles south. Okay? So 5.7 miles south. How far is Ashley from her starting point? So her starting point was right here. So if she ends up right here, how far is she from there? Since it's straight east and straight south, we can go ahead and make that a right triangle. So 3.4 squared plus 5.7 squared equals x squared. So 3.4 squared plus 5.7 squared equals 44.05. And so we take the square root of both sides, and we end up with 6.63, which is just going to round to 6.6. And so that's in miles. 6.6 miles from her starting point. Okay? So our last part that we need to discuss is talking about the Pythagorean Theorem converse, which tells what kind of triangle it is. Okay, so if a squared plus b squared equals c squared, then that is a right triangle. Okay, that's the one we already know. However, you can tell what kind of triangle it is if it's not equal. Okay, so a squared plus b squared, if those are greater than c squared, so if you add those together and it's greater than the biggest side squared, then the triangle is acute. Okay? And then if you do a squared plus b squared and it ends up being less than c squared, then that is obtuse. Okay? Should make sense based on your triangles. Like these two, can't really tell, but if you've got an obtuse angle, clearly C is quite a bit bigger than the other two. Okay? So that's just kind of something to think about there. All right, so we've got a couple examples. First, determine the three side lengths. First, determine if the three side lengths could form a triangle, and then classify. So to be a triangle, A plus B must be greater than C to be a triangle. Okay? Otherwise, it would not be possible. So that's the first thing you check. So 3 plus 7 is 10, so that's good. And so now we can go ahead and see. So 3 squared plus 7 squared, and then we don't know what it is compared to 9 squared. So 3 squared is 9 plus 49, which is 58, which is less than 81. So since c squared is the biggest, it is obtuse. Okay? So here, 4 plus 11, these give me 15. It's not bigger than 16, so not a triangle. Here, 18 plus 24 is bigger, so we can go ahead and say 18 squared plus 24 squared and compare it to 30 squared. So 18 squared plus 24 squared is going to be 900. And then 30 squared is 900 as well. So since they're equal, that is a right triangle. Okay? And so our last one, 31 plus 35, is bigger than 35. So 31 squared plus 35 squared is going to be 2186. And then 39 squared is 1521. So since A plus B, A squared plus B squared, is the bigger one, that is acute. Okay? So that's kind of how all that works with Pythagorean Theorem. Hope it made sense. If you have questions, please email me or Zoom with me or whatever it might be. Let me know, and I'll be available. Peace.